if you want to one-shot things in the game, and I mean everything in the game, Uber Lilith, World Bosses, Duriel, everything for Season 2, go ahead and watch this video. I try to break everything down as simple as I can, as unoptimized as I can, so it's easy to do. All right, first and foremost, let's go ahead and jump into the abilities here. These abilities will vary from every single build that you see online. These are just my personal favorites that I use here. I don't like lunging strike. I just don't like how it makes me move around the map. It feels clunky to me, but a lot of people go lunging strike, especially like lunging strike giving berserk on crit. It's very good. I just don't really particularly like it, so I end up going frenzy here. We go frenzy, enhanced frenzy, and combat frenzy for the damage reduction. It's not really important. It's just kind of like a generator if I need it, or a swing at if I need it. The second tree here, under core skills, we chose to go upheaval. Personally, I just really like upheaval. That's why I choose to go upheaval over everything else here. Double swing is a good thing, or is a good skill to go for. Hammer of the Ancients is even more broken if you decide to go for a Hoda build. But I personally like upheaval and charge together, and you'll see this a little bit later. But I do generally like upheaval for kind of like just clearing things in general, especially before you get an overkill. Upheaval will be a good source of AoE, but again, so will Hoda. Choose whatever you want here. Third tree here, defensive. I end up going ground stomp because that gives me a chunk of fury, which is helpful before you get metamorphosis or before you get some pants later on in the game to Balt's Will. But for then, you know, you get ground stomp. It's pretty solid. I like to get the imposing presence for the additional maximum health. This helps with overpower damage. Also, I didn't know where to put this last point, so I just put it here for a little bit of damage reduction against elites. Again, you can kind of just pick and choose whatever you want with this build. We're not even at the important stuff yet. This tree, I opt to go charge because I just like the combination of charge and upheaval together. Charge groups them up, upheaval takes them down. Just works pretty simple like that. I typically like to go power charge because if I ram things into a wall, I can upheaval them. If they're still alive, I can ram them into the wall and upheaval them yet again. It's a little combo I just like to do with Barb. It's a lot of fun to do. It's not the most effective, but it works. You can probably go Warcry here because that'll give you a multiplicative, so you can do even more boom damage. But for now, I just go charge. I don't really like shouts on Barbs. It's been overdone to hell. So I also get swiftness just for movement speed. It helps. I'm kind of slow, so this helps. I also get aggressive resistance for a little bit of damage reduction while we're berserking. We're always berserking. Battle fervor is very solid just to kind of keep berserking active for me because I'm always hitting with charge. So berserk, that also helps. Moving on to the next tree, the weapon mastery tree. This is the important one. You just want to max out death blow, and then either one of these works for you. If you have trouble keeping berserk up, I guess you can go with more fury, or if you have trouble keeping berserk up, you can go with warrior's death blow. But me generally, I like to get more fury. I always have berserk when I'm trying, so it doesn't really matter. There's Pit Fighter, which is good damage multiplicative here, and a little bit of damage reduction as well. I also take Thick Skin and Counter Offensive just for more multiplicative damage here. Counter Offensive is pretty solid whenever you got your Fortify up over 50%. Moving on to the ultimate skill tree, I pretty much grabbed this trifecta of massive damage here. So our death blow is always going to be tied to our mace, our two-handed blunt mace. So wallop, not wallop. Skills using bludgeoning weapons deal 15% multiplicative if the enemy is stunned or vulnerable. Pretty dang solid here. And then if you move over here to brute force, you have overpowers deal 45% multiplicative increased damage when using a two-handed weapon. So that's another big multiplicative here. While using two-handed weapons, you deal 15% multiplicative critical strike damage. This is another big one right here. Heavy-handed, wallop, and brute force. Three big ones right here that I enjoy. I also use Wrath of the Berserker. Go ahead and get on down the tree with that. And last but not least, Unconstrained for the big damage increase from being in Wrath of the Berserker. Pretty solid stuff here. Obviously, you can tie this tree into your playstyle however you want. That's exactly what I've done. I did not come up with this build on my own. I basically just seen a bunch of things online, decided, okay, let's put my own spin on it, and lo and behold, it works. It's pretty simple. Pretty simplistic stuff here. So, with the easy abilities out of the way, I'm going to go ahead and bring up the Paragon tree for you guys. So, this Paragon tree, straight rip from Rob over on Maxroll, the Barb guy, and also Dalcora, another content creator for Diablo 4. Very, very solid content creator there. Go check him out if you haven't. But it's just a rip-off of pretty much their Paragon tree. Some variation here and there, but not much. So just go down the quick and easy here so you guys can see it. This is the first tree. We put ire inside of the first tree here. And all my glyphs aren't even built up yet. And then on the first board that you connect to your first tree or your first Paragon board is the Weapons Master Paragon board here. And we're going to socket in Might here. Apparently you can put in Martial if you use Shouts. I don't, so I use Might instead. And there's the second part of the tree. Then we go to the east here. To the third tree, which is Carnage. And under the Carnage tree, you can just practically copy this, pause the video right now, and just take everything you want. I mean, it's a lot of damage while berserking, things like that. Moving further east, we have Crusher inside of the Bonebreaker tree, or Bonebreaker board here. Go ahead and pause this if you need to copy any of these as well. Then moving on up from here, moving north, we're going to the Decimator tree. Decimator is a huge damage increase for us. And we socket in Dominate here. And then moving west, we don't even grab the glyph socket here, but we run with Blood Rage. Blood Rage, killing a bleeding enemy has a 10% chance to grant berserking for 5 seconds, and it increases your damage by 25% multiplicative. Pretty big if you're speeding through a dungeon or if you just kill something right before a boss. It's kind of nice for that. You won't need this if you're going for that one-stop shop kind of thing, but it still... you can still one-shot everything in the game with this exact board. This is exactly what I was using in all of those clips you've seen before. So, obviously, you can get those numbers. So, moving on from there. Whoops. We're going to go ahead and check out our gear. This is a very unoptimized build, by the way. This is... I just want to throw that out there. This is a build that I just threw together on a whim. Ended up getting an overkill eventually. And things just worked. So, to give you the rundown, I'll just show my gear off right now. It's not that impressive. I was struggling for resistances, so I just looked for a death blow and resist helmet. It also gave us a little bit of berserking, so pretty solid. The damaging an enemy with a core skill thing, you don't even need this. It's just something that was on the helmet. Like I said, not the most optimized, and you can still one-shot everything. The body piece... I'm kind of proud of this body piece. It's pretty solid. It gives me a lot of damage. Now, I will say this about the build. This isn't the fastest or the safest. We do play hardcore. This is not the safest build to be running Nightmare Dungeon 100s on. You can do it. You just have to be very careful. You are not the most tankiest of barbs here. So just an FYI, get that out of the way. But regardless, the body armor... I get damage, ultimate skill damage, which I'm not even sure if this ties into Wrath of the Berserker. I think it does, but I'm not 100% certain on that. Also, weapon mastery skill damage and damage with two-handed bludgeoning weapons. Now, if you see here, we got the damaging an elite grants me a barrier. Well, that ties into something else that we have from a different multiplicative. Probably not optimized, but you know what? It works for us. On the next, we have Doom Gauntlets of Intercom. Solid gauntlets, gives me strength. I'm trying to roll not willpower, but willpower rolled on this eventually, so we just kind of settled with that. Crit, strike chance, and overpower damage. We also have the Intercom effect, so, you know, we deal damage as we stand still. Usually right before a boss, we're standing still for at least 3 seconds. And then we have Tybalt's Will. Pretty it's not a big roll on this, but, you know, it does its job. You don't absolutely need Tibalt's Will, but it does increase your damage quite a bit. Really solid piece. Especially for rage generation. Moving on, we have some boots with strength, some movement speed, cold and shadow resistance, and also our weapon mastery skill getting an extra charge. Not necessarily needed whenever you're fighting big bosses for those one-shots, but it is helpful for when you're in dungeons. Like I said, this is kind of an overall build. This isn't just a one-stop shop for bosses only. This helps with doing dungeons as well, but, you know, you are a little squishy, just a FYI. You can use any hammer, but your main goal is to be getting an overkill. Obviously, I'm slotting everything as well, as you can see, with rubies for more health, which is more overpower damage, and also overpower damage on my weapons. So having an overkill, it's pretty solid. You want the +6 ranks to overkill with the overkill maxed out, so this helps our damage immensely. Moving on, we have an Earthstriker Craghammer. Now, before you get an overkill, you want to have the swap weapons 8 times aspect here. You want that on your two-hander. Now, after you get an overkill, it needs to go somewhere. You can put it here. So, just a FYI, you can put this on a two-handed mace or a two-handed sword, axe, whatever you're going to use. Please don't use polearm. And, yeah, pretty much just an overpower mace. Overpower mace, strength, all stats. That's what you're looking for. Same here. We do use ground stomp for earthquake just because it kind of fits our playstyle a little bit more. You don't necessarily have to do this, but it also gives us a 25% multiplicative, and I do like the stun. Then we move to our two-handed axe here. What we have here is just kind of a juicy axe with crit strike, overpower damage, damage to close, kind of solid. And also the imprint, which is encroaching wrath. This is another very important weapon. You want to have this aspect on a two-hander for that sweet 200% multiplicative. Pretty solid stuff. You want this. Now, this neck piece is very, very strong for our overpower crits. Just an FYI on that. You definitely want to get your hands on one of these as soon as possible, but if you don't, other amulets work just fine. If you get amulets with +2 weapon mastery skills and +2, say, wallop, for example, anything like that, plus the two-handed mace damage, anything like that works just fine. But this actually increases your damage quite a bit. Moving on to the first ring we have. This is just a crit strike, crit damage, overpower, damage close. I would rather have health than crit strike damage personally, because my health is kind of rather low, if I'm being honest here. I want up to around 18k to 20k health. But we'll settle with what we got. Like I said, not very optimized, but it is what it is. This is where the protector aspect comes in handy here. So this is going to give us a barrier whenever we swing on a boss, and this is also going to give us a 23% multiplicative. Haven't even got a perfect roll on that yet. Like I said, just fits our playstyle, works out just fine. In the second ring slot, we have Edge Masters. Obviously, the more resource you have available, you're going to do up to 20% more damage. Multiplicative. So, again, not the best gear, not the worst gear. Kind of unoptimized setup here. But at the end of the day, it gets the job done. If you want to do what you just seen, it's not really that hard of a setup, but it does take a little bit to get adjusted to. So if we walk outside, I'm going to show you exactly how to set this up. So the most confusing part about this build is honestly just the setup. It's doing this right here. Swapping weapons 8 times, your next skill is going to overpower. So swapping your weapons up to 8 times. And also spending 100 fury for your next weapon mastery skill. So figure out your own means of gaining fury. That can be shouts, that can be, ground stomps, anything that you can to get fury. For us, it's Tibalt's Will. Pretty much whenever we dodge, we have Metamorphosis equipped as far as our Vampiric Powers, which, here we go. We'll talk about our Vampiric Powers really quickly. Undying, you don't even really need this. I just enjoy it. Hemomancy or Hemomancy, however you say this word. You don't even need this for the one-shot pop, but I enjoy it. It's good for dungeon clearing. Blood Boil is very helpful for the extra overpower and dungeon clearing. Again, not for the one-stop pop. Metamorphosis is going to be very good for our Fury regeneration, or Fury game. And Sanguine Brace is just great to keep Fortify up all the time. You can swap these into whatever you please. I don't think that any of these is necessarily needed. There's probably some here that are much better for, one-shot builds or something. But this is just an all-arounder, pretty solid, can still do dungeons and one-shot boss kind of build. Just a heads up. You don't need to min-max here. All right, so speaking of how to get your stacks set up properly, like I said, for us, our Fury generation is going to be coming from our dodges. See how much we gain right there. Every time we dodge, we're going to use an upheaval, and that's going to start building up our damage. We're going to do another swap. As you can see, the little sword right here, this is our numbers. We want to keep an eye on this. So when this gets caught up to 8, it's going to change effects. You'll see when we get there. Now, using 3 upheavals, we'll spend our 100 Fury, which gives us a 200% increase in damage. Pretty big. This is also our next attack. We'll overpower swing here from our Sanguine Embrace, or whatever it was called, the Vampiric Power. But now our goal is to not use Overpower to swap a weapon, but to keep using or swapping between our slashing and our 2 one-handers. Because if we use if we use Death Blow, we are going to use up this weapon mastery skill. We don't want to do that. We want to save this. So let's continue building up. We're at 6. We're at 7. And now we're at 8. Now we're set. We have our weapon mastery. We have our next attack will overpower. Now the next thing you want to do, find something. Doesn't matter what. Stomp. Berserker Rage. Find more enemies. Doesn't really want to show me anything now, huh? Well, here's the idea. You just boop things. And if that's a boss, it's pretty much dead. Very easy build to do overall. Not a hard one at all. Like I said, this is a very unoptimized build. I didn't think about hardly anything. I just put 2 things together. Like I said, the easiest thing to do, you're just looking for 2 things to start with. This is how you get your start. Get Earthstriker's aspect. Get it to roll high. Put it on a 2-hander. Get Encroaching Wrath aspect. Get it to roll high. Put it on your other 2-hander. And then get to killing. That's all you do. You get those 2 aspects, and that's your beginning. Now, obviously, you want to stack as much overpower as you possibly can as you level up. We got ours to about nearly 3 grand. You can go lower than this and start stacking more crit strike damage or anything of the nature here, but overall, you're still looking for your overpower damage. That's going to be your big boom. But with that, all you have to do the build up whenever you're fighting a world boss. Just, you can literally dodge around, get your stacks built up, get everything ready, and then when the boss spawns, just do what we did to Ashava and go pow. The biggest issue with the one-shot is hoping that you get a crit. Well, with our current setup anyway. Later on, if you've actually optimized this build, you can get up into the 500, 600 million range. It gets pretty high, and probably even higher if you really tweak it. But this is what we have so far. Very easy build to do. Very easy build to use once you get used to it. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope to see you out on Diablo 4, and I hope you're enjoying Season 2. Catch you later. And if you enjoy the video, make sure to like and subscribe for more videos in the future on Diablo 4.